Welcome back. The panelists here. NBC News White House correspondent Peter Alexander. Kimberly Atkins, the senior Washington News correspondent for WBUR in Boston. SHAWNA Thomas, the Washington bureau chief for Vice News, former member, actually always a member of the Meet the Press family. And Los Angeles Times columnist Jonah Goldberg, among other attributes. Welcome all. SHAWNA, I feel like, and I worried about this going into both of those interviews, is that I would come out of it and viewers would come out of it with
no answers.
No answers.
Yeah.
And we're in this cul-de-sac, and it feels as if I think it's because of the president, but I don't know how we get out of this cul-de-sac.
Well, I mean, I think former Secretary Jay Johnson's op-ed in the Post was interesting, mostly because he basically said comprehensive immigration reform is super hard. And we tried it during the Obama administration, didn't get it done, even though there was some bipartisan agreement on what to do.
They tried it in the Bush administration, and it didn't get done. Yeah.
Even though there was some bipartisan agreement
Yes.
on what to do. And the thing that I keep wondering is the same question you asked them, which is, okay, Republicans and Democrats, you both acknowledge that kids in cages and those photos you showed before we went to break is terrible. This is not how America treats people. We don't have enough space in HHS facilities to move people, which is why it's taking so long. What are you going to do? And you are going to have to get together and maybe force the president into doing something. But I think the other thing we know is the president thinks this is a deterrent.
Yeah.
And every time we put these pictures out there, it's a deterrent. And he is not...
Is it?
Well...
What's the evidence that it's a deterrent? I don't know if there's been... Right? I mean, we don't think there's... Right.
Yeah, but he's hoping it's a deterrent. And if people come out and their stories are terrible, maybe he will end up getting what he wants out of that.
Jonah, I have a feeling if the president... The Capitol Hill could solve this if the president weren't involved on this one.
That is a true statement about many things. But look, it's telling. That video you showed at the beginning of Sarah Fabian, the Trump administration lawyer, defending those conditions, what's left out in a lot of media coverage is that was a case from the Obama administration. Yeah. And the point being is that this is actually a bigger problem than Trump. The nature of the immigrants who are trying to cross the border is different than what our system was set up to deal with. It used to be able-bodied, single men, mostly from Mexico, coming across the border. We had a legal system to deal with that. Now, because of the Flores decision and other aspects of our law, you have Central Americans who are bringing small kids, and they basically are using these kids. Sometimes they're not their own kids. Sometimes they are, obviously. Most of the time they are. They're using these kids as a pass to get across the border. And Jay Johnson is absolutely right. Will Hurd is absolutely right. If we don't deal with the problem as it actually exists, rather than the one we imagine it to be, as the Obama administration discovered, it creates a really perverse incentive to send more people to the border that perpetuates the problem.
But the incentive is also being exacerbated by the Trump administration and by Trump and his policies and his rhetoric itself. I mean, talking about cutting aid to these countries and you know, using kids as, I don't know if they're so much using kids. The vast majority of the time, the children come with a family member. If it is not a parent, they are treated as if they are an unaccompanied minor. But these are people coming as families escaping atrocious conditions. If they see what's happening at the border, if they know, that just tells you how atrocious these conditions are. But the president sees this not only as a deterrent, but he sees it as a political advantage. He sees he's being tough on immigration. That's what his people want. Exactly. And that's why he stood up. In 2017 and 2018, he had an opportunity to do immigration reform. He could have said, I did what Bush and Obama couldn't do. And he walked away from it both times because he thought it was politically disadvantaged.
Peter,
I'm struck by a couple things right here. First of all, the fact that the president had a different reaction when he saw those Syrian children. Obviously, the circumstances were different. He saw the images of what was taking place to these children overseas. He thought the solution was easy. I could bomb these runways, didn't hurt anybody, and I got to be the hero in this situation. Why hasn't he had the same impact? Why hasn't he shown the same empathy to some of these children that are in the United States? I spoke to a Trump ally this morning who said, in effect, it's because the president thinks this is a lot more complicated. He thinks the bad guy here is less clear. Some people say he's the bad guy, so clearly the bad guy has to be the Democrats. But the president, as you know from day one, he is so focused on marketing and selling, right? So this is all about, that's why he put out the tweet saying that we're going to deport millions and millions of these undocumented immigrants. Chuck, they only have 6,000 deportation officers in the country. You're not deporting millions and millions of people.
But he'll keep saying it.
Of course he'll keep saying it, because the bottom line is, this is the message that he campaigns.
Which brings me to the census.
Yes.
Because it's why does he continue to fight this? He needs to be seen by his base as fighting, but if he was trying to make a legal argument to get it back, this comment here destroyed any chance of that. Take a listen.
Well, you need it for many reasons. Number one, you need it for Congress. You need it for Congress for districting. You need it for Appropriations. Where are the funds going? How many people are there? Are they citizens? Are they not citizens? You need it for many reasons.
Shauna.
Yeah, I mean, number one in this country, when we redistrict based on the census, we do it based on persons, not citizens. So what everyone is saying is that when he says that, is he trying to turn this into a ploy where we redistrict based on citizenship? And if that is the case, what a lot of people have said is that that means Republicans have an advantage and white people have an advantage.
Right.
But the federal government has specifically said in this case that it had nothing to do with discrimination. The Supreme Court didn't even take that part up. They didn't let them take that part up. Now the Maryland judge is letting them take that part up. And now the people on the other side, the plaintiffs, have this.
But Jonah, I don't mean to be this cynical here, but the president is going to continue to talk about it. And even though it won't be on the form, many Hispanics may hear that it is on the form or may fear that it's on the form. He has now said it enough, and maybe the damage is done.
Maybe. There's a whiff of four-dimensional chess that you're ascribing to the
Well, and he's never a four-dimensional player, three-dimensional, two-dimensional.
I mean, we should be clear. I actually think the executive branch has every constitutional right to actually ask about citizenship and nativity, which it did for about 190 years. This was a completely unforced error, which Justice Roberts basically said, if you just hadn't screwed up the way you did this, you could ask it. And the problem now is that Trump is not getting that message, and they're not getting their ducks in a row. It's another one of these things where if they just were less on the crazy train, they could get some of the things they want done.
It's the difference between growing pains and the pains of not growing, right? I was so struck by what the lawyer said when they were discussing this. The lawyer said, as the tweet came out, that was the first time this lawyer heard about it, said, quote, "I'm going to do my absolute best to figure out what's going on here."
By the way, I want to take that quote. We should quickly put it up, guys. I'm sorry. I'm going to take that quote. It can apply to every tweet he has ever said to any administration official. I couldn't. Any administrator. Here it is. The tweet this morning was the first I had heard of the president's position on this issue. Just like the plaintiffs and Your Honor, I do not have a deeper understanding of what that means at this juncture other than what the president has tweeted. But obviously, as you can imagine, I'm doing my absolute best to figure out what's going on.
It's also the conversation we've all had with our bosses and journalists.
That is to me the quote of the administration.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. The bottom line is he has the perception of fighting, though, is what matters here. That's why there's all this shifting going on behind the scenes right now to figure out what to do.
Joshua Gardner, you get the mic drop moment here for that. When we come back, he was the person that uttered that statement. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.